There is something that deeply unsettles me when I observe certain patterns in counseling sessions. I see men who are hardworking, competent, men who have built stable careers, who from the outside seem to be living fulfilled lives. And yet, when you sit with them long enough, you notice something heartbreaking. They apologize for simply existing. They apologize for being tired, for being hungry, for needing comfort, or even for taking up space in this world. And when I ask them why, they shrug and say, "I don't know. I've always been like this." But I know. Because what looks like politeness or humility is not a personality trait. It is the residue of old wounds, invisible scars, left by childhoods where love was not a given, but a reward you had to earn, a prize you could lose at any moment. These scars shape far more than behavior. They sculpt an entire way of relating to love and intimacy. They determine why calm affection makes you uneasy, why you feel the urge to prove yourself again and again, and why relationships often feel like battlegrounds where you never win, no matter how hard you try. These patterns are not coincidences nor quirks of personality. They are the result of very specific emotional conditioning that began long before you even had words to describe what was happening. And decades later, it still decides how you love, how you allow yourself to be loved, and why you find yourself stuck in cycles that repeat the very pain you once swore you would escape. Think of it this way. When a child grows up in a home shaped by narcissism, their nervous system doesn't grow in ease. It grows in survival. Your emotional GPS is calibrated in hostile terrain, and even when you leave that environment, even when years have passed, that same system still scans the horizon for threats that no longer exist. It anticipates betrayal where none is coming, prepares for battles that aren't happening, and drains your spirit with constant vigilance. What looks on the surface like strength or awareness is often nothing more than exhaustion disguised as responsibility. One of the clearest ways this shows up is in the compulsive need to explain yourself. Have you ever noticed how you can't just say no? You feel the urge to defend it, cushion it, dress it up with reasoning so no one will think less of you. You write long explanations where a single sentence would suffice. You apologize before you even state how you feel, as if having emotions is a crime you must beg forgiveness for. This isn't communication. It's survival. It's the inner child who once learned that a simple refusal could unleash chaos, that their needs weren't valid unless explained with desperate precision. So you develop the strategy. If I can just explain enough, justify enough, make myself small enough, maybe I'll finally be acceptable. But here's the cruel truth. When you turn every boundary into a negotiation, you teach others to question your right to have boundaries at all. Then there's what I call hypervigilant empathy. To outsiders, it looks like an extraordinary gift. The ability to read a room instantly, to sense shifts in tone, to detect hidden tension in body language. Before you even cross the threshold, you know who's angry, who's upset, who's about to explode. But let's be honest, this isn't a gift. It's a survival mechanism. You trained yourself to pick up on danger before it arrived, because in a volatile household, your safety depended on predicting emotional storms. As a child, this radar kept you safe. As an adult, it leaves you trapped in constant alertness, unable to relax, even in love. You become the partner who anticipates needs before they're spoken, who bends and molds themselves to avoid conflict, who carries the weight of everyone else's emotions at the expense of their own. It looks like compassion, but it is really exhaustion, and intimacy cannot grow in soil that is over-controlled. Perhaps the most painful of all is the allergy to tenderness. When someone looks at you with genuine affection, when they touch you with kindness that asks for nothing in return, you don't relax. You freeze. You wait for the catch, for the hidden price, for the betrayal wrapped in sweetness. Your body tenses because once upon a time, kindness was never free. Love was always followed by a debt. Affection always came with invisible strings, and tenderness was a weapon used to disarm you before the strike. So now, even when a truly good person enters your life, your nervous system reacts as though you're in danger. You don't mistrust them because they're untrustworthy. You mistrust them because your body has been trained to believe that love equals threat. And here is where healing must begin. It doesn't come from forcing your mind to repeat, "I am safe." Healing comes from teaching your nervous system, slowly, patiently, that not all tenderness hides an agenda, that not every kindness will demand repayment. It means allowing yourself to stay present even when every fiber of you wants to pull away. It means breathing through the discomfort until your body begins to learn that love can be safe, that not every outstretched hand conceals a trap. But survival doesn't only show up in how you receive love. It also shapes how you perform. Even when you're alone, you might find yourself rehearsing conversations, rewriting texts, adjusting your tone, shifting your body language to match what you think someone expects. You create endless versions of yourself. The professional mask, the family mask, the social mask, the romantic mask, and at the center of them all is the same desperate question. Who do I need to be in order to be accepted? The tragedy of living behind masks is that after a while, you forget what your real face even looks like. Authenticity begins to feel like a luxury, something you can't afford. Because in your earliest years, showing your true self was dangerous. It meant risking rejection, criticism, or the message that who you were at your core was simply not enough. And so you performed. You learned to shift and adapt, to become whoever the moment required, not because you were dishonest, but because survival demanded it. Yet the price of all this performance is steep. If you're always acting, who is left to be loved? If every version of you is shaped to please others, how could anyone ever truly know the real you? That's the cruel paradox. You long to be loved for your authentic self, and yet authenticity terrifies you. Mature love is not an audition. It isn't a test you need to pass. It isn't a role to play. Real intimacy is two imperfect people standing before each other as they are, with their wounds, their contradictions, their gray days. But if you've spent your whole life performing, this kind of love feels impossible. To be loved for your true self would require you to risk showing it, and that feels unbearable. And yet, without that risk, you end up forever rehearsing a script that hides the very soul you wish someone would finally see. Then comes the epidemic of apologizing. I'm not talking about the apology that arises when you've genuinely made a mistake. I mean the apology that escapes your lips simply for existing. You apologize for laughing too loudly, for needing space, for sharing joy, for crying, for having an opinion, for expressing pride in yourself, even for things utterly beyond your control. I've seen people apologize for the weather when it rained, as if they had caused the clouds. I've seen them shrink when someone acknowledged their achievements, as though being recognized was somehow offensive. This isn't humility. It's the echo of a child who once believed their very existence was a burden. And here is the devastating consequence. When you keep apologizing for who you are, you teach others to treat you as though you are worth less. You reinforce the belief planted long ago, that your needs are too much, that your presence must be justified, that your worth must always be explained. Apologizing becomes a form of self-erasure, a slow disappearance of your right to occupy space. And without realizing it, you hand the world the same script that was forced upon you in childhood. I am too much. I must be smaller. I must be sorry. This sets the stage for one of the most confusing and self-sabotaging dynamics of all, the magnetic pull toward emotionally unavailable people. To outsiders, it looks like masochism. Why would you chase people who withhold love, who offer crumbs instead of nourishment? But for your nervous system, it makes perfect sense. It's familiar terrain. Love, for you, was always tied to effort. Affection was always something you had to earn. And so without consciously realizing it, you equate struggle with passion, uncertainty with intensity, and conquest with proof of worth. When someone offers you love freely, without drama, without resistance, your body doesn't recognize it. It reads it as boredom, or worse, as suspicious. Something in you whispers, if it's this easy, it can't be real. And so, you end up in cycles where you must fight for love, prove your right to be chosen, chase the unavailable in hopes that this time, finally, you will win the love you never received. But what's really happening is not romance, it's repetition. You're reliving the script you grew up with, hoping for a different ending. And yet the truth is this: the only way to break free is to endure something your nervous system resists. The experience of love that comes easily. To stay in relationships where affection doesn't need to be earned, where emotional presence is given freely. At first it feels strange, even dull. But over time, your nervous system learns a new language, one where love does not equal chaos, where passion is not defined by pain, and where peace is not the absence of excitement, but the foundation of true intimacy. But perhaps the deepest fear I encounter in those who grew up under the shadow of narcissism is the terror of becoming like the very people who hurt them. You live with a constant vigilance against your own reflection, terrified that you might show arrogance, cruelty, or indifference. So you shrink. You downplay your achievements. You deflect compliments. You avoid recognition. You hide your light because you fear that shining might make you resemble the one who once overshadowed you. This fear is so strong, it can imprison you in invisibility. And yet here is the beautiful irony. People who worry about becoming narcissistic almost never are. The very fact that you hold this fear proves your empathy. True narcissists don't lie awake at night wondering if they've hurt someone. They don't reflect. They don't tremble with guilt. They don't wonder if they've become like their parents. The fear you carry is proof of your humanity, your awareness, your deep desire not to repeat what once wounded you. It is your protection, not your curse. But when fear grows so strong that it stops you from shining, it becomes another prison. You trade one set of chains for another. And this is where the journey of healing takes its most important turn. Recognizing these patterns is not about labeling yourself broken. It is about reclaiming your power. These reflexes were never signs of weakness. They were survival strategies, ingenious tools your younger self built to endure what should never have been endured. They kept you alive in an environment where love was conditional and safety fragile. But now, those same tools no longer serve you. What once saved you is now the very thing that keeps you from living freely. The hypervigilance that once kept you safe now shows up as anxiety in relationships. The endless explaining that once protected you has become a cage that prevents you from setting clear boundaries. The masks you once wore to survive have become barriers that block anyone from seeing who you truly are. And the apologies that once softened danger now diminish your worth before anyone even has the chance to value it. Survival strategies, once brilliant and necessary, have turned into prisons disguised as habits. But here's the truth. I want you to hold close. Healing doesn't mean ripping away every scar overnight. It doesn't mean becoming someone brand new in a single leap. Healing is quieter, more subtle, and far more courageous. It begins the moment you notice these patterns, and instead of condemning yourself, you meet them with gentleness. Healing is when the instinct to overexplain rises, and instead you pause, breathe, and let your simple no be enough. Healing is when your body tenses against tenderness, and you choose to stay present anyway, allowing yourself to be touched by kindness, even when it feels foreign. Healing is when you catch yourself rehearsing yet another mask, and instead, you let a piece of your true self slip through, even if your voice trembles. This process is not about perfection. It's about practice. It's about choosing, moment by moment, to live differently than your conditioning dictates. Each time you resist the urge to collapse into old roles, each time you step toward authenticity, each time you allow love to meet you without explanation, you are rewriting your story. And this is no small thing. This is an act of extraordinary courage. Because what you're really doing is choosing the unknown over the familiar, healing over repetition, growth over survival. You are telling your nervous system, gently but firmly, that the war is over, that peace is not a trap, that love can be safe. And this brings me to something vital, the way you see yourself. Because no matter how much love surrounds you, no matter how deeply another person cares, if you remain trapped in a toxic relationship with yourself, nothing will ever feel enough. You cannot truly receive love you don't believe you deserve. You cannot build a healthy connection while carrying the belief that you are unworthy, broken, or too much. You cannot give freely to others when you continue to deny yourself the very tenderness you offer them so easily. This is why every path to healing begins with you. Not with finding the perfect partner to rescue you, not with proving yourself worthy through accomplishment, not with pleasing everyone around you, until no one can criticize you. Healing begins when you start treating yourself with the same compassion you would give to someone you deeply loved. Imagine your closest friend had lived through what you endured. The fear, the manipulation, the hunger for affection that never came freely. Would you tell them they were too much or not enough? Would you demand endless apologies from them, or would you hold them with tenderness, telling them they deserve to be here simply because they exist? That is the voice you must begin to use with yourself. Because here's the deepest truth. You deserve love simply because you are alive. Not because you're perfect, not because you've earned it through sacrifice, not because you've shaped yourself into someone more acceptable. Your worth is not up for negotiation. You don't have to perform to keep your place in this world. You, with all your wounds and scars, with all your patterns and mistakes, are already enough. And when you begin to believe this, even imperfectly, something shifts. The endless search for approval softens. The desperate hunger for love outside of you begins to quiet because you are learning to feed yourself with compassion from within. Of course, there will still be days when the old patterns rise like ghosts. Days when the familiar urge to explain yourself grows loud, or when tenderness still feels unbearable, or when you're tempted once again by the drama of the unavailable. That's okay. Healing is not a straight line. It's a spiral. You will circle back to old wounds again and again, but each time you return, you come back with more awareness, more strength, more tools to choose differently. And this is how transformation takes root, not in the absence of old patterns, but in your growing ability to meet them with patience and to respond in ways your younger self never could. So when the apology forms on your tongue, catch it and choose instead to state your need without shame. When you feel yourself chasing someone who cannot meet you, pause and turn toward the person who is truly present, even if your nervous system whispers it's too easy. When you feel the old terror of becoming like those who hurt you, remind yourself that your very fear is proof of your empathy, not a sign of danger. These small choices are not small at all. They are acts of liberation, because what you are really doing is breaking generational chains. You are refusing to let the wounds of the past dictate the shape of your future. You are refusing to let the pain that sculpted you be the same pain that defines you. You are taking the raw material of survival and slowly, steadily, shaping it into something new, something that no one handed to you, something you built with your own hands, with your own courage. And this, I believe, is the true essence of mature love. It is not the dramatic storm that leaves you exhausted. It is not the endless audition where you must prove your worth. It is not the fragile arrangement where you apologize for taking up space. Mature love is steady, imperfect, real. It is the kind of love that looks at you on your worst day and does not demand an explanation. The kind of love that respects your boundaries instead of resenting them. The kind of love that doesn't vanish when wounds appear, but stays with you as you tend to them. Mature love, the kind your nervous system may not yet fully recognize, is not a prize for perfect healing. It is not something you finally become worthy of after you've fixed every broken piece of yourself. Mature love is not a destination you arrive at once you're flawless. No. It is a companionship that walks beside you in the very act of healing. It does not demand you to be whole before it shows up. It embraces you in your becoming. It says, I see your scars, and I'm not leaving. I see your fear, and I'm not afraid of it. I see your boundaries, and I respect them because they are part of what makes you who you are. And here's what makes this so powerful. Healing is not measured in how fast you eliminate your old patterns. Healing is measured in the small, courageous choices you make in the face of them. When you resist the urge to explain yourself endlessly and instead allow silence to hold your boundary, that is healing. When your body tenses at tenderness but you stay in the moment long enough for your heart to soften, that is healing. When you catch yourself performing and dare, even for a moment, to let your true self show, that is healing. When you want to apologize for existing, but instead breathe and claim your space, that is healing. And when you feel tempted by the old familiarity of emotional unavailability, but you turn toward the safer love that feels strange but genuine, that too is healing. Every one of these choices, however small, is a declaration. You are declaring that survival is no longer enough. You are declaring that you deserve more than scraps. You are declaring that love, real love, is no longer something you will earn through suffering. It is something you will allow, something you will choose, something you will honor by first offering it to yourself. And in making these choices, you are rewriting the story that once felt inevitable. You are taking the script that was handed to you, the script of conditional love, of endless performance, of unshakable fear, and you are changing its ending. You are writing an ending your younger self could never have imagined, one of freedom, of authenticity, of peace. Because your story is not just about survival anymore. Survival was the first chapter, not the last. Now you are stepping into the chapter of flourishing. And flourishing is not loud or dramatic. It doesn't need to be. Flourishing is found in the quiet confidence of knowing you no longer need to justify your place in this world. It is found in the calm assurance that your worth is not negotiable. It is found in the tenderness you finally allow yourself to receive, and in the courage it takes to give love without fear of it being stolen. Understand this: the love you've been searching for exists. Not the love that demands endless explanation. Not the love that disappears the moment you show your true self. Not the love that keeps you begging for crumbs. The love you long for, the love your inner child has always dreamed of, is out there. And it is also looking for you. But in order to recognize it when it arrives, you must first begin to treat yourself with the very tenderness you wish someone else would show you. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you adore. Protect yourself the way you would defend someone you cherish. Offer yourself the compassion you so naturally give away to others. Because the truth is, no love will ever feel safe if you cannot first feel safe within your own skin. No love will ever feel enough if you cannot first believe that you are enough. And so, the work begins here, with you, with how you breathe through discomfort, how you resist the urge to collapse, how you choose to stay present when everything in you wants to run, with how you meet your reflection in the mirror, not with criticism, but with patience, with how you whisper to yourself in the quiet moments, "I am worthy of love. I am allowed to take up space. I don't need to apologize for existing. I am enough." There will be setbacks. There will be days when the familiar voice of survival is louder than the new song of healing. There will be moments when peace feels strange and chaos feels safe. That's part of the process. Don't let it convince you you've failed, because the very fact that you now recognize the pattern means you are no longer imprisoned by it. You hold the keys. You carry the map. You know that survival is not the same as living. And here is what I want you to take with you. You are not broken. You are not too damaged to be loved. You are not defined by the mistakes of those who failed to love you the way you deserved. You are someone who survived, who endured, who adapted with brilliance in order to stay alive. And now, you have the power to transform that brilliance into something new. Not just survival, but growth. Not just endurance, but freedom. The love you crave. The love that does not shrink you, does not demand explanations, does not punish you for your wounds. That love is possible. And it begins with the radical act of choosing yourself. Choosing to believe that your existence is not a burden, but a gift. Choosing to stand in your truth even when your voice shakes. Choosing to allow tenderness to touch you even when every nerve screams in protest. Choosing to live as though you are worthy, because you are. This is your story now. And it is no longer a story of scarcity, or apology, or fear. It is a story of awakening, of learning to see yourself not as the child who had to earn every crumb of affection, but as the adult who finally realizes, I am allowed to be loved simply because I exist.